Hello, welcome, welcome everyone. This is Maggie Ostara, and I'm delighted to welcome you here to our Sovereign Sister Salons. And I want to welcome you to our Sovereignty by Design page. If you haven't had a chance to like it and follow it, please do that. And I want you to know that all of the recordings of all of the Sovereign Sister Salons are available on this page, and they have they're just in the video section, so there's a whole bunch of them in there now, so go and enjoy, check them out, and like I said, make sure to like us and follow us so you know what's coming up next. All right, so I want to welcome Jennifer Covington, who's my guest today. Hi, Jennifer.
Hello, hi.
Yay, I'm so excited that you're here.
Thank you.
Yay, I'm glad we're going to get to dive into having a soul-centered business.
That's
So
right.
yeah. So I want to just say a couple of things, and then we'll dive in. So for those of you who've known me for a while, you probably know that I started out really building my business as Soul Signature Marketing and then Soul Signature Success. And my whole gig was about supporting transformational teachers and practitioners and leaders and business owners, helping to create soul-inspired businesses that positively impact the world. So I did that for like 5 years, and it was great. I loved doing it, had big coaching programs, you know, and then I needed to change. I actually burned myself out and
As
got
one does.
divorced, and, you know, like my whole
Yeah.
life went another direction. But I love meeting Jennifer because I feel like we have this really similar orientation to supporting people with their businesses and being able to know that you can create a business and you can create money in a way that feels really authentic to you, really aligned with who you are, with the best you, that you don't have to compromise and fit yourself into little boxes and all that. So
Yeah.
I feel really aligned with her around that. And so I'm super delighted to be able to get to learn about her approach to this, because of course we all have our own flavor of how we do what we do. And I'm delighted to get to hear her brilliance. So I want you just to say hi, and then I'm going to read your great bio so people know a little bit more about you. But go ahead and say hi.
Yeah, your intro, I feel like, of what just to be soul inspired was such a mic drop. It's where it's like, well, that's the nugget. We could release you now, but we won't. We'll do more. But that was it right there. I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, great. And those of you who are on Zoom, hi. Those of you who are there on Facebook, hi. So go ahead and say hi and where you're coming in from, and let us know if you have questions or ahas. And I will aim to remember to get back to you, but sometimes I get so involved with my wonderful guests that I forget. So forgive me if I do. But we want to really, really welcome you. Okay, so let me read her stellar bio here. Jennifer has had the pleasure of working with Fortune 500 giants such as Anheuser-Busch, MGM Studios, and 20th Century Fox, which is, you know, interesting corporate, but the really great part is coming now, and spent 3 years in Ecuador teaching small business development to poverty-stricken single mothers and orphaned youth as a means of livelihood and sustainability. Cool. From these experiences, Jennifer has learned what it takes, no matter who you are, to create, build, and run a freedom-based, soul-centered business from the ground up. Wow, so cool. Today, Jennifer helps heart-centered, mission-led, purpose-driven entrepreneurs build sustainable, so important, sustainable, profitable businesses with heart, integrity, and authenticity and soul. Her genius lies in her ability to help you turn your passion into profit so you can make the positive impact you were made to make in the world. Oh, I just love it. You and I, we're soul sisters. I can just
We are. Yeah.
Yay. So our title today is How to Launch and Grow a Soul-Centered Business. So So what I want to do before we dive into that specific content today is I want to invite you, Jennifer, just to share a little bit about yourself, and then also what does sovereignty and personal and feminine sovereignty mean to you?
Which I just love that term. You know, you introduced me to that term, but it does bring up something. So I love that prompt. But yeah, it's something in your voice, or I don't know, like anytime you said a word, I was like ping, 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 like ideas and just how it could be an hour-long conversation, like each point. But yeah, I did work with and then for and then with Fortune 500 companies. It was that thing where you leave corporate, but then you go out on your own, but then you let them hire you as a consultant as the first income coming in.
Right.
Um, and yeah, that I thought I was doing, following the rules. When you talk about being, in a box, it's like you graduate from college, you get the corporate gig, and then that the rest is history, basically. And so, growing up in St. Louis, Missouri, Anheuser-Busch was like the corporate job to get. And so that's what I first did. And I did learn marketing from them first. That was my first training, and I was amazed just to see how marketing was such applied psychology. And I could see how it was could be used for good, and also how you could be manipulative with it, right? So
Hmm.
then fast forward to me being, in the online space, also seeing people kind of using smoke and mirrors and bait and switch techniques, and really feeling called to showing a different way, because I've been taught marketing in so many ways where it's like, it doesn't have to be that way. And I've seen people go broke trying to implement these less than moral ways of doing marketing, because they have a moral compass that wouldn't let them. And I actually felt called out, where it's like, a different way, and you should actually be leading with that. You should be calling out to the folks who don't want to do business that way, or who can't, whose moral compass won't allow them, and
Hmm.
those need to be your peeps. So
Hmm.
that's how I started doing soul centered, to call out to the people where it's like, this is for you if that kind of scammy stuff doesn't feel good to you.
Hmm.
And we should be the leaders, right? The people who do sales with integrity, who do marketing with integrity. If we're the
Hmm.
leaders, then sales and marketing doesn't become a bad word, because, no one's having bad experiences with it anymore. But right now, historically, that's been the case. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what led me here. And then also the fun part about Ecuador and doing business development there, obviously, that was life changing. And I just got to see, the pendulum swinging in the opposite direction of, in corporate, where, staying in these hotels and the mini bars and all that kind of thing, and you expense this and that, versus doing work in a developing country where people are interested in entrepreneurship, not for like flashy woo woo, but just for their livelihood, because there weren't opportunities unless they conjured them up on their own.
Hmm.
Um, for the youth that I worked with, there was a lot of crime, and once they were turning 18 and being emancipated from their orphanage, they didn't really have options, and so entrepreneurship was a way for them to earn a living for themselves in an honest way, and
Hmm.
it's teaching the fundamentals of business, of where's, what does the market need? What is your skill set, and how can you answer it? And those, scrappy teenagers are the best at it. Fearless too. They just needed the tools, and then they're
Hmm.
off to the races, fearless and so smart. And same with the women that I worked with, the single moms. They were in a very dangerous, very impoverished area, but in their hearts, they wanted to do more for their community, and they just needed the tools. And so, of course, I think I'm going there to help them. And of course, I learned so much and just grew as a person of just that kind of heart and vision. But they would set up different businesses around their community, like a nursery, so the moms could all drop off their kids there and go into the bigger city to find work, because a lot of them were single. And so the nursery generated income, but it also allowed the women to bring economy to their
Hmm.
area. Or we had a community store that also part of the funds went to the cafeteria we created, that offered a portion of free lunches so that everyone could eat. The people who could afford the little bit that it cost, they could keep the business going, but then also everyone who literally didn't have a penny could still eat, really home, prepared foods. So that was so fulfilling, and really getting that other side of business. And again, so that heart and soul, and a deeper why to do the thing, is just what I got on an experiential level. So
Hmm.
that is all, that is who I am, that brings me here today. And so then that's why I identified that truly women entrepreneurs are the ones that I have seen that create that ripple effect of change, who are interested in it, who have the tenacity and the ability to do many things at once. And when we earn really well, we give back to the youth, we give back to our communities, we edify, we elevate, we create policies that are, fair and just and equitable. So I work also with, like you were saying, the more like conscious teachers and practitioners. And so that's who I work with too. And I can't always do the magic they do. I'm not a psychic or anything like that, but I do have a skill set. And if I can help those, what I would call magic makers,
Mhm.
do their things sustainably, then that's my way of, affecting change in the world, So
Okay.
that's the heart behind what I do.
Yeah. Well, and I want to just make a little footnote here, which is because I really felt it while you were talking, which is, capitalism gets a really bad rap a lot of
Mm,
times. And I think it's important to make distinctions between
hmm.
different types of capitalism, right?
True.
I mean, multinational capitalism has proven to be a problem. Right. I mean, in
Hmm.
all kinds of different ways. But
Yeah.
small capitalism, right? Small
Hmm.
entrepreneurship can be incredibly powerful for people
Yeah.
to learn that, wow, I can just, if I come up with an idea and it
Mm.
meets a need that people
Hmm.
have, I could potentially have my own business.
Yes.
And so small capitalism, I think is great. And I love to
Yeah.
support it. And I really heard that coming through what you were saying. So I just wanted to
Yeah.
make a note of that.
I love that idea of small capitalism too, because just like with investing, how they say, have a diversified portfolio,
Mhm.
that that's the same where when different small businesses are thriving versus one or two companies running everything, then it keeps us all honest, it keeps us all hungry and excited and passionate and just truly doing, what we love. And then the market also gets to choose like who's a great fit for you, and
Mhm.
everyone's really
Mhm.
able to work cooperatively that way. So I love that
Right.
idea.
Right. So, and you also have all this diversity, right?
Yes,
Instead of this homogeneous offering, you
totally.
have a lot of diversity, a lot of different options,
Yeah,
and it boosts creativity
right.
and so on. So, and also, again, another footnote, which is that in human design, which I
Mm.
know isn't your particular area
But
of
I love to hear all
expertise,
about it.
but is like in human design, there is something called the business circuit. And
Mhm.
in the business circuit, it's in the tribal circuit, so it's meant to be like a smaller scale. Like
Mm,
multinational
mhm.
capitalism actually isn't in the human design chart,
Yeah. Mm,
because that would be in the collective circuit, which is really about when
mm,
all the tribes come together, right? Which is
mm,
where
mhm.
government is and infrastructure is and other things are, but
Yeah.
commerce is in the tribal circuit,
Mm.
which I find really interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah, so it's meant to be more among smaller groups of people or based in a
Mhm.
smaller way of doing business. So it's not against
Huh.
business at all,
Yeah, at
but
all.
it has a way of it showing up more, almost not exactly face to face. We don't really live in a face to face, well, especially right now. We don't live in a face to face world, but smaller scale. So
Yeah,
I like
I
that.
love small scale. And then you get that personal touch and you can adapt and change. No one likes to really be on the receiving end of too much automation. You know what I mean? Like you
Hmm.
feel like you're on a factory belt just getting pushed through a
Hmm.
process.
Hmm.
So that's why we do love the small,
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
absolutely love that. And, also just with working with women as well is having had the corporate experience, I found so much that I had to leave parts of myself out of the room, to
Mm.
be able to fit in and, that whole thing. And so that was the other thing that I was interested in doing is just creating a space and then encouraging others who have the audacity to dream that you can create your own thing and it can be custom fit to you. And guess what? You are answering a need of someone out there. And I have I'm a Capricorn sun and moon. And I say that I have my feet on the ground and my head in the sky because I have visionary ways, but I'm very, very earthy grounded.
Mhm.
So that's what I bring, to my work is that I have a strategic mind, very practical ways of approaching dreams and visions, right? So they're so big and ethereal. So I'm like, I'm with you in the clouds. I see it too. And then I'm like, bring it back step by step. But that's how my work is. I can say I can take you from the dream to reality and monetize that. and that's what I do, you know. And so I think when people, especially women, you know, we're dreamers and no one takes it as seriously, you know, of like, you can make money from that, or that's worth listening to and leaning into. And so that was another part of working with women. It's like, let's create your own thing. You're so good at it when it's your thing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I love you're the self-proclaimed queen weight maker for change, world change makers, which I just
Yeah.
love, of course.
Yes.
So you are obviously already connected to some notion of sovereignty if you're placing the crown upon, you know,
I
your
feel like the
head.
the crown was placed. I just being a good receiver, my clients.
Okay, great. Yeah, which is actually in some ways the best way to be a queen is for it to be, you know,
Bestowed.
bestowed upon you. Yeah. So tell me, what does what does sovereignty mean to you, or what, what does being the queen here mean to you, and what does feminine sovereignty mean for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, the sovereignty piece is really what I was just saying, you know, as in terms of my clients, where
Mm,
it's like make your own way, make your own path, because you do it the best, and we all benefit being on the receiving end of you
mm,
shining brightly in your zone of genius, answering our needs because you studied the market, you know, and then like you said, if you can generate something out of nothing, it's an idea, and then you're getting paid for it. It's really alchemy, actually, right? But so then you are sovereign because no matter what someone takes from you or the economy turns or whatever, you can always do it again. You can always stand on your own 2 feet. And for various reasons, you know, I have found women self-abandon for various reasons of not being empowered in a myriad of ways. And so this is definitely using, you know, entrepreneurship as a tool towards sovereignty. And
mm.
then feminism, what was the exact word?
Feminine sovereignty.
The feminine sovereignty. Yeah, that part would be the approach. Because again, for my Fortune 500 folks and being so driven in Capricorn, that drive and go hard and, you know, eat lunch at your desk and like, that was a very masculine model, and I was definitely trained up in a masculine model. And so to find the feminine it's been such a relief, and I've needed a lot of training and learning in that because that is not how I was raised, and then that was not how I was trained as a professional. So um, I think going about feminine sovereignty. So the idea that you can make it on your own, but it doesn't have to be the grind and the burnout and the fatigue and all of that.
Mhm.
The feminine is so powerful, and I don't feel like that has been amplified, you know, for the centuries of the world. And I think we're getting a clue now worldwide. And so the feminine piece of it to me is the approach, you know, the approach of following intuition and taking a nap, you know, and communal, right? It's not about hierarchy, you know, it's about you have a genius, let's commune and come together versus having to one up and all of that. And so the feminine sovereignty is that picture, you know, you're creating your own way, but it's in a communal, easeful, flowful, you know, way. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Great. Great. And I also would just say, like, for me and my pillars, because I have 8 pillars of some
Hmm.
feminine
I
sovereignty,
love a pillar.
is one of them is collaboration. And so
Yeah.
for me, doing these salons is
Hmm.
part of feminine sovereignty, because it's
Hmm.
about women supporting each other and lifting each
Hmm.
other up. And it's not necessarily about personal gain.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't do this for personal gain. I
Yeah.
do this because well, the personal gain I get is I get to, like, hear the brilliance of the women that I meet, which I do like that part
Yeah.
quite a bit. But I also just really like the way that we can support each other and lift each other up and help
Yes.
each other, because to me that's a more feminine way, rather than
Yeah.
the competition or the quid pro quo, where it's like, well, I'll do this for you if you'll do that for me, and then you have to
Yeah.
be equal, and
Yeah. And talk about sustainable, like the feminine, you know, collaborative way is much more sustainable because no one's depleted and you're not at war. You
right.
know, it's just it's collaborative, and so you give some comes in, and yeah, that is the sustainable model.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And for me, it's also based in a lot of trust. There's a
Yeah.
lot of trust both in each other, but also in the larger cosmic field, and
It's
in the
true.
super consciousness, and that, really, we're all expressions of that one great
It's
super
true.
consciousness. We're just in
Yeah.
different bodies, but that,
Right. Because even when I'm saying you give some and some comes back, it may not be in that same,
mhm,
whoever receive, but in what you're saying, it's trusting that you are contributing to this ongoing flow. I mean, that's such a feminine ideal. Um, and even another thing that I wanted to bring up just for your community too, just in, we're rounding out the end of 2020, um, and that there's so much uncertainty and people feel so uncomfortable. And now we're going into a new year that's like, what's going to happen? And truly, the feminine side of us all, however you identify, is going to be the thing that leads us into this next chapter for sure, because it is unwritten in a way. And this is really when tapping into that, collaborating is going to be key. It's like, let's get our resources together and trusting, like you're saying, trusting your skills, trusting what you know, trusting your intuition. And the folks, which are folks up in here in this virtual space, who are already so primed to, and who have been doing this for decades, you're the leaders, because some people just got a clue and are like, oh, maybe I should meditate and try to listen because nothing else is working, but you've been doing it forever. And so that's really my, challenge, or I implore anyone listening to really take that up, and really not be afraid to lead in your own way, because folks are going to look to you because you're going to have your own confidence and your own security of just like, I got this. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow either. And yet I know I can rise to the moment, each moment, because that's how I've always done.
mhm,
So
mhm, yeah,
yeah.
no,
And
I
that's
love
a
that. I
feminine
love
way to
that.
approach it for sure.
Yeah, and I think I'll just say, because this is kind of going back to something you said earlier, but they're very related, which is that I remember when I learned how to make money
Mm,
and as an entrepreneur, and I just went, wow, I never have to worry about money again because
mm-hmm,
I know how to make money.
mm-hmm.
And we're not taught how to make money when we go to
No.
we're not even taught how to balance a checkbook. Although I have to say my kid did take a finance class and learned about
Nice.
that. I was so glad. I was like, God, nothing like that was available when I was a kid, but that was a long time ago. But anyway, and that idea, like there's so much freedom in that. And you mentioned that, and I
Yeah.
think that for people who are struggling at this point, and if you
Mm-hmm.
haven't had your own business, or if it's been challenging for you, to really get the fundamentals about how can you make money,
Mm-hmm.
because when you get that, there's a liberation in
Yeah.
that it's hard to put your finger on,
Mm.
um, but it just takes away a kind of worry and a kind of like, I need this other thing in order to be okay. It's like, no, it helps you really go back. So
Yeah.
let's follow up
I
on this.
agree.
So
Yeah.
how can you profit from your calling and your purpose? How
Yeah.
can you do that?
Yes. So, as we've sprinkled throughout this whole conversation, it really does start with you first. And so it is, what is your vision, or what is the dream? I feel we're taught so much. And again, I feel like, yeah, our dreams were tamped down, called ridiculous, called crazy, wasn't encouraged, especially once you get to a certain age. It's like dream big when you're 3, but then, when you could really have the agency to do anything about it, then you're called crazy and you're put into the factory machine to, our school teaches us from the industrial age of, like how to be a cog in a machine. But anyway, so then where do those dreams come? And those ideas and those visions are such a whisper, that if you are not used to listening in, then it's hard to find. So that's one of the first things that I work with my clients on. And that's where the non-cookie cutter starts right away. Like, I also have a system that I take people through, a formula, but a lot of it's about you and what makes you unique. And so the first thing really is getting tapped back into that voice and your vision and your dreams, because what I know is that there's invisible forces helping you along, so it's like, I got this idea, but I don't know. And it's like, just say it, and then it's like, da, 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 and I can hear people feel that it's impossible, but one of my gifts is I can see it. I'll be like, I got it. I can see the steps. I see it. And then, yeah, one of my gifts is just being able to see the steps to lead towards it. But that's going to be the first thing you need, is just owning it, because if you don't, or if you downplay it, then you're mucking up the waters, and the invisible hands are like, no, that's not it, you know? But if you lean into it, and we've all had that experience where you kind of like go out on faith and you're like, I don't know how that happened, or I don't know how I did it, but it happened, you know? So that's one of the first things. And the other thing is, you know, we've all met successful or people who we deem successful that are having the financial gains that they want, but they're still not fulfilled.
Mm.
And they get all the way to the end of the line and they're kind of like, ah, I worked so hard for this. What's missing? It's that piece. It's the piece that you didn't check in of what really matters to you. You know, what do you care about? What do you really want to do? And so again, when you do that first, so even if you're seasoned in business listening to this, if you haven't done that piece, go back, especially now, especially now, because everything's so unpredictable. Why not? It's going to be the thing. It's going to be the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you get all dreamy, you know, then you can get practical. You can even put a dollar amount to that, because saying, you know, you might know kind of what your life and lifestyle would look like. Well, identify about how much would that be, because then you can start making your financial goals, and then you can work backwards from there. And then beyond that, getting more practical, you know, thinking about what does the market need, you know, and what are your skill sets, and who is that ideal client that needs that. Because a woo, you know, principle though that I do have attached to that is that there's someone who is hoping and praying and drum circling and saging, you know, for that thing you do. I don't think you get that perk and that desire unless there's also a need somewhere for that. And that speaks to what you're talking about of our oneness, where we're complementary, we're here for each other. And so you're like, I kind of want to do this. And that's because there's a whole population of people who are like, I wish there was someone who could do this thing. And if you don't answer that call, then they're left high and dry, or they get involved with the person who wasn't quite the match for them. And so when I got really connected to that idea myself, that's what gets me out of bed. It's like, someone needs this. There's people praying for this. You know, it's not so much about me. It's just my duty to show up, right? And us people, you know, folks like us, we can get fire behind that, right? Like we can get juice behind that. So
Yeah,
that's just some
absolutely.
beginning steps.
No, I love that. I love that. And one of the things I've always said, and I remind myself is,
Right.
I'm only looking for the people who are looking for me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
And for me, that takes so much weight off of marketing. You know, like you were talking
Yes.
earlier about all the swarmy marketing and the
Right.
manipulative stuff that's
Oh.
trying to coerce people to do things or trick people into things. Or
Hmm.
it's like, you don't have to do any of that.
No. Yeah. Yeah. There's divine contracts already. And so it's our job. It is our job though to show up, and we do have to be visible, and we do have to truly speak from our truth. And that becomes all the work, right? Where you're just like, okay, do it again today, you know, because it's not, you know, that takes effort, it takes courage, but it's really that piece, so that the person who is for you is like, zing, you're my person, you know, and you can connect. And so even to bring human design, I know that I'm a projector. And so I know that I've learned that really that should be all I do is be visible, show up, speak my truth, and be a lighthouse, you know?
Mhm.
So
Well, tell us more about how do you become a client magnet?
yeah, well,
Because that's kind of what you were starting to talk about right
yeah,
there. Yeah.
right. And so, I mean, it really is that piece. You know, a lot of us probably don't love hard sales and cold sales and all of that kind of thing. We liked that aligned feeling where we're able to show up in our truth, and people self-select and raise their hand or like, you're for me. And so when you can combine, I have, you know, a formula that's really your story plus your ideal client, which is a whole body of work, and then your movement. The naturally, when you take those into consideration, you'll start developing, you know, your niche and your unique selling position and that kind of thing organically. And that's when people are going to be like, oh my gosh, you're uniquely for me, you know, that's where that starts happening. So to break those elements down, your story, you know, in the business sense, could really be your brand story, and it's how you came to do what you do, why you're brilliant at what you do. Most of us have a story. That's why it's inspired, because that's why we care to do what we do. We either were, young and always good at this. Like Marie Kondo, I read her book, and she's been the tidiest thing since she was born. She was like cleaning out closets, throwing her family stuff out, like it was just in her to do. So there's that, you know, where you're just that person and you're finally just really deepening into your genius. And again, for the magic makers, the psychics, and the hands-on healers, you likely weren't celebrated for that, and you that likely wasn't developed, you know, in you. And so it feels weird to now charge for it and do it, you know. But you have a story of how you came to be, or you had a before and you had some transformation, and now you're on the other side and you're reaching out a hand to say, hey, I did it and you can do it too, and I'm going to teach you how, right? Those are usually the two kinds of stories, but some people don't realize they've been on a journey. But if you can share your story, you know, we both can say we're spiritual business coaches, right? But your story is going to be unique to
Mm.
mine, right? Than mine. And so depending on our paths, someone listening might be like, oh my gosh, you have been where I've been. Or you're such a genius at what you do. You're the only one who can help me, right? And then when we talk about ideal client, you get to choose who you want to be a champion for, who you want to help. So again, I really, you know, I've been in corporate, so I could do corporate trainings. You know, I love a PowerPoint, so I could do that. But who I care to work with are really those, you know, socially conscious women entrepreneurs who want to do what they do, make their money, and make an impact in the world. That's who I care to help. And so a different spiritual coach might be like, I want, you know, women to make millions so they can create foundations, or I want women to, or anyone, I keep saying women, but it could be, you know, any coach could want to do any number of things, but that's going to make us unique. And then your movement really is about, there's usually a bigger piece of what you do. You know, there's like why you do what you do. And so again, mine's that ripple effect of change. And so if you take your story plus who you choose to be a champion for, plus the bigger why behind your business, those are going to be vastly unique to you without you trying. You know, you don't have to do an ideal client avatar or anything like that. It's just, and if you can dissect that, then you're going to see where your niche lies, and you're going to see where your unique selling position lies. And that's how you can organically become a client magnet to folks who just deeply resonate with you. And the last thing I'll say about that too is once you start working with people or interfacing with people, because at some point you do just have to put it out there and see what lands. You then get to fine tune just the languaging and how to talk to those people and where they are in their journey when they're ready to, you know, hop in and get that transformation with you and things like that. And that's going to help you become more and more of a client magnet as well. So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's so much of the more feminine way too. It's like rather than having like this outer focus where you're going
yeah,
out and
that's
getting
true.
clients,
Yes.
is that you're really getting connected. And this is from human design, this is what's definitely best for all generators, whether you're
Mm.
manifesting generator, pure generator, and projectors and reflectors, everybody other than manifestors. And
Hmm.
even for manifestors too, but especially for the 92% of us of the
Uh-huh.
population who are not manifestors, um, is to really get so involved in what we're doing, like you were
Hmm.
saying, and getting really passionate
Like
about
own
it
it.
and
Yeah.
talking about it and owning it and getting really embodied in it.
Hmm.
And that helps you become a magnetic force. I mean, in human
Yeah,
design,
that's
we
true.
actually have a magnet in our G center, our heart, which is called the
Mm.
magnetic monopole. And our emotional tone will
Oh,
calibrate
wow.
that energy. And you know, the heart has this energy that does this, right? This
Yes.
big field that it creates. And so when we're really energetically connected to something and emotionally involved, and that's what
Hmm.
we're putting out, right? And then that's a magnetic field
Yes, it's
that
almost
brings things.
undeniable.
Yeah,
Yeah, and there's
totally.
that resonance. And don't we love working with those clients where there's just resonance and they get you and you get them? And so it's just a joy to really co-collaborate, you know, at that point.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Well, so tell us, so in this pursuit of sovereignty in the world, in the realm of prosperity, which I
Yes.
love, and let's say, you know, it's really hard to have sovereignty if you don't have command of your financial situation. Like,
Mm,
you've got
mm-hmm,
it.
mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
you saw working with people who were really impoverished, right?
Yes,
And the difference it made to
that's right.
them to be able to learn how to make money. So,
That's right.
for those of us in, this wealthiest country in the world,
Yes.
we still need that for sure. So how do
Mm-hmm.
we create multiple streams of income, right? Because I
Mm.
know for when I was doing a lot of business coaching, I would interface with people where they were doing like a lot of one-on-one sessions, for example.
Yeah,
Like that was like kind of the only thing they knew how to do, was like one-on-one
right.
sessions, which is okay. And if you can block
Yeah.
out your,
Lucrative. Yeah.
your calendar,
Mhm.
but there's also many ways to make money. So
Yes.
tell us about your perspective on that.
Yeah. So my perspective on that, because I also have like a financial friend who, manages portfolios of like these huge properties. And so multiple streams or multiple sources really means like you have real estate and then you have, your savings account and then maybe you sell stuff on Amazon. So I'm saying it under the coaching umbrella still, of just how to have multiple ways you're able to help and receive funds. And so, like you said, one-on-one is a great way. And as long as you're well and thriving, you can do it. However, there is a cap on your energy, on your time, and all
Mhm.
of that kind of thing. And so, definitely layering other streams are absolutely saying hi, Lane. Is absolutely worth it. And so, I encourage my clients to have multiple streams, such as create productizing, your genius, bottling up that brilliance that you have. And so, especially now that we're in the digital age, having some kind of program or course is a great way so that you're able to duplicate yourself. And that way, if you have an off day or an off 6 weeks, or you need maternity leave or whatever it is, then you can create some kind of automation that is selling your course, for example. So people are able to learn from you, but you're still, it doesn't have to be you. It's not your time, right away. And I was having a thought coming through as I was saying something else. What was I saying? The course, I lost it. I lost it. It was something around duplicating yourself. I don't know what happened. It was like maternity leave. I lost it. But anyway, that's one. Making, a product of some kind that it doesn't involve you the whole time.
Mhm.
Oh,
Mhm.
I know what came through. It was kind of like from left field, was that also, folks, especially as they're starting, or, like your one-on-one is a premium offer, whether you realize it or not. So I know a lot of us will feel like, oh, I wish I don't want to charge as much. And so what a course allows you to do is take, a piece of your framework or a piece of what you do, or maybe all of it, but you're able to record it once and put it out there, and you can offer it at a lower price point. And usually that also sells my client on the idea, because folks are able to benefit from your genius at a different price point, but it's without you kind of cutting yourself off at the knees, because you're bringing your full self, to your one-on-one work. And then also being able to do, say one to many. So it's not just the one-to-one, but being able to have a one to many where, just like you're doing here, you are, it's this set amount of time, but many people can benefit live, and then they're also going to benefit later, right?
Mhm.
And so it's, again, you're able to give your genius or your transformation, but it's not just one person receiving it, it's multiple people that can receive it. And again, sometimes we're like, oh, I'm only effective if I'm doing it just one-on-one, but it's like,
Mhm.
no, and be generous that way, and be willing to open yourself up to these other ways that you can provide transformation. So those are just a couple of ideas, but the true idea is, what are the ways? And so, creating a framework. So like you said, you have pillars, I have a formula. There's ways to break down what you do in a way that has a system to it to a degree. And I know some of us, feel very organic and are like, no, it's got to be organic every time. But the first step of my system is get clear on your vision. So already we're going to be all over the place in a way. Everyone's going to be unique, but that's step one, right? And so don't be afraid to create a system for how you work, because that's going to be the the step that you need to be able to create those multiple streams, because then you'll see how you can package it into a workshop and package it into a VIP day and have it be a one-on-one experience, you know? And so that's really the beginning of how to leverage and then also bring in that prosperity in a myriad of ways. And I know my clients were happy they did that during this season because some stuff went away, you know, in-person events gone, right? So if you only had one way, then it took some pivoting, right? You had nothing but time at that point. But you know, some folks were just like, oh, I'll just ramp up my course, you know, I'll ramp up this other thing. This is the virtual side of what I do. And so that's the benefit, that you're always ready for something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so Lane made a comment here, which is
Hi,
related to
Lane.
a question I want to ask. So Lane is actually a no motor projector. She's just a mental
Oh,
projector, and she says that she had a soul-based aromatherapy practice for 12 years,
oh,
but
that
burned
sounds
out
so
for
good.
multiple reasons. Yeah, well, no motor projector doing one-on-one work. That's going to be hard, Lane. You and I have talked about that already.
Mm,
So I'm not even sure if I want to have my own business or if I have the energy, but I want to explore possibilities. I have great counseling skills, but promoting myself is daunting and doing one-on-one is not attractive.
mm.
So yeah, so I know, you know, that I've experienced with a lot of people that the sense of, but I don't have a system. Like
Mhm, mhm.
I don't have pillars. I don't have a formula. I don't have a thing like that.
Yeah.
So and I think this could help Lane to just kind of think about what she might do if she doesn't want
Yeah.
one, like what might be just even a first step. If you were like, okay, I'm open to the idea that I have a system, but I don't know what it is. I don't know how to
Yeah.
get at it. So how
Yeah.
would you help somebody in that situation?
Yeah. I'd say call me and I'll pull it out of you. But
I hear you.
because it is so, but it's simple, you know, in a way, because it's like it's just what you do. And so trust me when I say that you have an approach. You approach your work in a certain way,
Mhm.
and your approach can be, you know, methodologized. And so if you think of me, you know, I'm your ideal client, right? I need what you do. If I'm like, okay, you talk to me, you find out I need what you do, what's the first thing you're going to say to me? Or what's the first thing that you're going to be like, this is what you need to do first, right? Because that's your step one, you know, before you can start doing your magic, it's like, well, what's that first thing that you're going to tell me to do? And then I'm like, all right, cool, I did that. Now what? You would likely have something that you would say, like, okay, great, you did that first thing. Here's the next thing you do. And that's your step two. And then on from there. Okay, so then once that's complete, what do I do next, right? And the idea is that you're getting me from where I was in my pain to, you know, whatever you're claiming you're able to help people with. So, you know, I've worked with a lot of health coaches, and a lot of times the step one is the assessment, you know, which again, from there, it's all different, right? But the step one is we got to assess, we got to figure out what's going on. And I think assessment's a great first step if you don't know your system, because you get to assess what's going on. And you know, maybe the next step is, you know, an accountability practice, or you know, something like that, where again it's a system. It's varied depending on who's in front of you, but you still can systematize what you do. But you're going to also find that there are pillars, there are certain things that you care about, that you feel that people need to know. There's, you know, educational things that it's like, okay, well, once you get here, then you need to learn how to, you know, balance your chakras or get your adrenals, you know, back in shape, or whatever it is. There's going to be a piece that is uniquely your thing. And I just think that in the past we've been afraid to claim that thing, or corporate is like wipe all that individuality away, right? And
Right.
so it's just getting really clear. And so it's just, it could be a journal practice. It could just be, you know, playing in your head of just thinking of your friends, you know, or people who you know that could use your work, and just say, okay, like what would I tell Jessica? And how would I get her from point A to the end, you know? And that's how you can start developing your system, and then work with people, you know, even if it's for free, if you just have to test out your system, that will show things too, you know, that'll uncover things as well. But you'll see that you have an approach, you know, and a way
Mhm.
you go about doing things for sure. So,
Yeah.
you know, framework, methodology, curriculum, pillars, system, framework, all of those words apply.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, just go do it. Give it a shot.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
because that's when like the money making happens, because once you know, it gives you a body of work, right? You're like, this is my body of work. And then you're able to create your marketing, calendar. You're able to see, I love doing online workshops. I don't really want to work one-on-one, like Lane's saying, right? There's so many ways to package what you do, and it doesn't have to be one-on-one. That's just one of the options. And so once you know your framework and your body of work, then you can take just the beginning and call that the intro. You can take the full thing and work with people who want to know your whole body of work. It just opens up all possibilities, and so
well, so
that's what.
tell us, because so we're right here, is how do we fall in love with marketing? Because so many
Okay.
people are allergic to marketing or they
But
feel
why?
daunted
And
by it, like Lane just said, right? So
yeah,
how do
Lane
we
presents
fall
that
in
for
love
us.
with it? Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so I have 3 steps on how you can approach your marketing. And again, see, it's steps, but it's unique to you. So the way you can look at marketing is first look at where do you play already? What do you do already? And right now, when we say marketing, we think we're just talking about social media. So you're like, I hate Twitter, I don't want to do Instagram, and I'm burned out on Facebook. But business has been done for decades, right? There was direct mail, there's picking up the phone, sending a letter, sending an email. There's so many different ways, schmoozing at a party. Marketing's been done in various ways. So if you love doing small party, dinner parties with your friends, that could be a way you market, right? If you love talking on the phone, then you can figure out maybe that's a way that you market. So just identify, where do you play already, but maybe you do show up on Facebook. And so there is a way to make that work for you. So that's the first thing you want to consider, is just where do you play? Where do you play already? When you kind of lean back, where do you go? What do you do, right? So that's one thing to consider. Then, since we're talking about business, you do need to consider, where are your clients? Because if you're showing up and being fabulous, but your ideal client isn't there, then that's cool for a hobby, but it doesn't really work for business. So you do need to consider, where will your ideal client see you, right? And then you also want to consider, third, where do you shine the brightest? And so that's different from one, because one's kind of where you gravitate and you feel comfortable. But where you shine the brightest is, what I say is, where do you convert really quickly or really easily? And by convert, I mean, of course, I mean, you can take someone from a stranger to a client, a paying client. But it's also like, people are like, oh, I want to work with you, like, oh, let's be business partners, or like, let's collaborate. Or people just like, you make new friends in this way. But you take people from like, stranger, I don't know you, to like, I'm in. Or maybe they do a behavior change. You do a post on Facebook and people are like, I took action, I did it, I hadn't talked to them in 20 years. That's a conversion, where you, from them interacting with this thing you do, they've changed, right? And so a lot of times, where we shine the brightest, either we don't know we have that magic, we don't, because it just comes to us, and so we downplay it or we don't identify it, or it's so precious to us that we judge it really, really badly, in the way that, so that we don't think we shine brightly there at all. I find that a lot with my writers. They're like, I'm not a quick writer, I'm not a great writer, but they're phenomenal, but they judge it so hard. And so they don't realize. So this might be something you have to ask people, but yeah, I'll use myself as an example. So I shine brightly. If we haven't noticed, it's really standing in the front of the room, like speaking, which, there's that adage where most people would prefer to be in the casket than giving the eulogy, because they fear public speaking more than death. So that was so me. So it was something I didn't enjoy, didn't feel great doing. But I noticed, even if I would go up in front of a room shivering in my boots, people would be like, oh my gosh, how can I work with you? Will you be my friend? Just converting all over the place, right? People converted when I did that. And same then with video, or just kind of gift of gab, that whole thing, even though I don't feel that I'm polished clearly or anything, but again, I convert really quickly through that. So what I did in response to that is, now I hire speaking coaches, or now I get in speaker circles. I'm always trying to just skill up or just stay in the routine of it, because it's just where I shine brightly. And so if you wrote a blog post, or you just like were casually writing something on Facebook and people are like, oh my gosh, that changed my life, or I did something different from reading that, then you got to recognize that's where you shine brightly, right? And so there is a marketing channel that encompasses all these things, where you like to play, where your ideal client is, and that where you shine brightly is highlighted there, right? There's guest blogs if you're a writer. There is the written word on social media. There's your own website. If you're a talker like this one, then there's YouTube. There's partnering interviews. There's podcasts. There's so many ways you can do what you do once you've identified those things. And if you don't know, ask your friend or ask your business besties, because they'll be like, oh my gosh, you're so good at this. You're so good listening one-on-one. I mean, I feel like I'm the only one in the room. Well, then that's what you do. You do one-on-one sessions and you just get people in your business that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and what I'm also hearing, I want to underscore here, just for people to get this, is Jennifer's not saying do everything. She's saying find, right? Because you can't.
100%.
Right. So I just want to underscore that.
Thank you for pulling that out.
Listen to all this stuff, right? It's like, no, find, and actually one of the pillars of feminine sovereignty, it's related, it's not exactly the same, but which is to know your terrain. Know your terrain and know your contribution, know who you are and what your thing is, because there's so much, and you got to find your way out of overwhelm and zero in on your topic, right? Your brilliance, the place
your
you
way,
the place
your
you
approach,
and you just let everything else go.
Yeah. I say slay in your lane. Same thing though. I'm so glad you said that, because I feel like there was an era where that's the people who were coming to me when I would just say, you don't have to be everywhere. They're like, tell me more. I'm going to hire you just for that, So taking things off of people's plates is totally a gift. You're so right about that. And that is part of the angst with marketing, is that there are so many channels and you feel like you have to be everywhere. So that is number one, is just realizing you don't have to be everywhere. I say, so after I teach that piece, I'll say pick one, maybe two places that you're going to be and show up on consistently, and just go from there. Because we forget, even if we have the multiple streams, that usually energetically we want to hold a certain container. Even if the container is 500 people, it's still finite. We don't usually want 3 million, and so it's okay to, if you're on this channel, being wonderful and converting and being authentic, and people are just coming to you, you're going to have plenty of folks, and there's always word of mouth and recommendations. So don't be afraid, to concentrate and, like you said, slay in your lane. I forgot. Know your terrain. Know your terrain.
Yeah, know your terrain. That was because in sovereignty, right, we're sovereign of our terrain. That's the thing. It's like you're not trying to be sovereign over other people or over everything. You just want to be sovereign of your terrain. And in order to do that, you have to know what your terrain is.
It's so true.
Select it and make decisions, because you're not going to be like queen of the world, right? It's like people who try to be queen of the world get in trouble. I mean, they just, people don't like
we don't need another thing. We don't need burnout. And that confidence that comes with being like, I got this, that's so necessary when you're an entrepreneur. And cutting down on the crazy making, or just like that feeling of like, everywhere, anywhere you can cut that out is ideal. So
and this leads us to our last question, which is perfect because we're coming up on the end of the hour. But I love this part, which is, how do you add free time to your schedule?
Well, okay, so that
while still being a successful entrepreneur, how do you do that?
And I mean, the nugget is, how do you cut down on all that like busy to do, right? And so it's really incorporating a lot of what we talked about. And so it's being willing to just pick a couple of platforms, being really great and consistent, and then that's it, right? That piece is though really highlighting the idea of the system, because what we find is that we love to help, and folks do resonate with us. They'll be like, I don't know, it's just your energy. And so what will happen is we'll be like, I'll be your magic maker. What do you need? And then we're researching and we're trying to figure it out. We've got 10 clients who are all needing different things. And that's how you get really, really busy and burned out. But if you can identify, your system and your framework and how you work with people, that's going to start giving you your time back because you know what to say yes to, you know what to say no to, you know what your marketing, topics are because you have a system, you know how you work, and then you're able to package it in a way that will leverage your time. So if you need to just do one to many, that's how you're going to get your time back. It depends on what you want to do. But if you're like, I want Thursdays off, then you create your business to give you Thursdays off, and that might be doing a quarterly workshop that handles your revenue for the quarter, right? And so you really do get to be sovereign in how you approach things once you have those pieces in place. And so that part though really was about the system. It's figuring out how you approach your work and just getting really good at that. And then again, we're collaborators, women I feel are really great at relationship. So get your bevy of people who are also great at what they do and are slaying in their lane. And so if it's not your lane, say it's not for me, but I know this woman, Maggie, she's amazing. And I'm definitely going to do an email, an email intro and just take it off your plate so you're not trying to figure out, like what's a manifesting generator and wait, what's the difference? Like just give it to me, just hand it off, right? Just hand it off. And so then you're not researching, and that we get busy trying to be everything to everyone instead of just, being sovereign in our terrain. I love that. So that's that piece. And being willing to make it the way you want to make it, because we've been trained so much to it's supposed to look away, it's supposed to feel away, and it's like, nope, you could do one workshop a quarter if you want. Just make it work. Just make it work. Know your numbers and make it work.
Yeah. And I think I want to just underscore this one piece here, which is that creating your system, your formula, your pillars or whatever, it is an investment of time and energy. It is an investment of time and energy up front. Right. And so know that, like, you have to carve out some time to do it, and it's iterative. So you're going to do it, and then you're going to build it, and it's going to, it's going to go back and forth as you use it and stuff. So initially it can feel like a bunch more work. And over time, it really pays off, which is one of the principles of being an entrepreneur, right? Is that you put in more upfront and then you get paid, right? Like you do work that you don't get paid for initially, and then over time you get paid for stuff that you did before. So I always like to, because that's a really hard mindset for some people who are still really used to trading time for dollars. And they're like, I'm in all this time, I'm not gonna make any money doing it. Like, why would I do, So and I don't know if you want to.
But the power of, in that case, beta launches or, lower, discounting what you do versus giving it away for free, because accountability is such a thing, or having someone in your corner is such a thing, and so just because you're testing out a framework doesn't mean they're not going to get something out of it. And just what can you promise? If you're not a weight loss coach, if I'm like, Maggie, call me at 6 a.m. every day and make sure that I go run Lake Merritt, you're going to help me with my fitness, even though it's not, just like having that, if you're like, okay, I will do it. Right. So just have that energetic exchange of like, I'm going to pay you to do what you're saying you're good at, is even a level above that. And so don't be afraid to charge for you spending a container of time with someone while you test out the specifics of your framework, because they're going to get something out of it, especially if it's an area of your expertise. Even if you're seeing if it's your expertise, they're going to benefit. If you're reading tarot cards, if you're helping them with energy work, if you're helping them with their business, you holding space for them is going to make them better by the end of 6 weeks or 90 days. And so don't be afraid to charge for it, so it's not all free labor.
I hear you. Well, great. Well, this has been wonderful. I'm so glad that you've been here. And
yes, thank you.
Is there anything else, that you'd like to share as we're wrapping up here?
Oh, I thought I saw something pop up.
I did. No, you know what? Let me just read this real quick. Lane, I'm going to see if you have a question here. I think she's more of a comment. She says, I created a system using aromatherapy as a way to spark people back into the healing they had during their hypnotherapy session. I
Mm-hmm.
taught classes to other therapists and basically had a business of one-on-one with other therapists who sent me their difficult clients. Oh, love that, right?
Well, that's the
And I did
burnout.
a videotape of my class, but it fizzled out. But I've got some other ideas about how to teach through personalized hypnotherapy tapes, right? Which no one is really doing, just not sure. I want to try again. Yeah, well, Lane,
Yeah.
you just got to get really clear whether you want to be doing this. I mean, that's
Yeah.
one thing. And what would you want to say?
Yeah. Well, at first, just like the healing, the healing that comes from a blow or getting burned out, it is no joke. I say burnout is the entrepreneur's kryptonite because to be taken out like that, it's devastating. So I feel where you're coming from, Lane, with that. So just healing that piece and then taking that idea of like, I'm not doing it that way again. And then just really having the courage to say like, well, what do I want? And if you're like, I just want to do an annual virtual retreat and I don't know how that's going to cover my bills, but that's really all I've got the energy for. Then you get to problem solve. I call it solve for X. It's like, well, at least now you know. So what would it have to look like for you to do, one thing a year and cover your expenses? Or, like what would that have to look like? Maybe you do affiliate marketing throughout the year where other people are selling, and then you go from there, right? But first you have to get clear. It's like, well, what would feel good? And what do you want to do? And if you're like, I want to teach horseback riding, if I'm honest, then it's like, well, then you got to start your research now. Like, go down that path, figure it out. Because we know trying to, hit your head up against the wall, it just doesn't bear fruit. So I'm definitely supporting you and just being like, well, what do I want? Let's start there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So we just had a request of where can we find you? And I put in jennifercovington.com.
Yes.
And I'm also wondering if do you want to send people to a particular place where they can get on your email list and maybe get something
Yeah, if you
juicy
go
from you?
to jennifercovington.com/freebie, then there's a
Freebie.
couple of trainings I have under that page. And so then you get to see me nerd out on just, making plans for your website and blog and all that kind of stuff.
That sounds great. That sounds great. All right. And Karen over here on Facebook, she said, Amen. Brilliant. So I don't know what exactly she
Oops,
was
I missed the
referring to, but
question.
thank you, Karen, for that.
Oh, yay. And I
um,
see you, Lane. Yes, I can't wait to hear what you come up with.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So any last words?
Thank you just for having this. Thank you for the work you do. I just so appreciate the energy you exude. So, and I appreciate you inviting me here in your space. This was a really great time.
Yeah, it was really good, really good. So if you have your own business and you're allergic to marketing, or you're afraid of getting burned out, or you just want to have it go easier for you, go talk to Jennifer because she can help you in the best possible way. All right,
Yep.
everybody, I want to make sure, please, even if you're not following us on Facebook, could you go and like us and follow us on Sovereignty by Design on Facebook? It really helps. It's, trying to get, Facebook is a bit of a funny terrain. I can't say it's my terrain, but I am there. So I
I
appreciate your
understand.
support in helping to do these. That's one thing you can just do. It's really super simple.
Yeah.
All right. Well, take care,
Awesome. And thanks for
everybody.
everyone who was here and just for having the courage to do your work. We're in it together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Many blessings. Much love. Bye for now.